Thank you so much for joining me today. This is the Community Ledger. And again, my name is Andrea Banu. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have not already, go ahead and press that subscribe button because I definitely appreciate it and allows me the opportunity to continue to make this commentary. Now, with regards to today's episode, it looks like Hakeem Jeffries had a lot of negative things to say with regards to the Trump administration in its less than 30 days that they've been in office. And then I also want to talk to you about Miss Ayanna Pressley and her position on reparations. So go ahead, grab a snack, and let's join the show. Yes. Okay. Again, thank you for joining me. So today, Mr. Hakeem Jeffries did an interview where he discussed some of the failures that we're seeing thus far within the Trump administration, and then the position of leadership with regards to the Democratic Party. I felt it was incredibly important to get on here today and speak to you listeners and viewers because we really want to keep our eye on the Democratic Party. It sounds like they're doing a whole lot of gaslighting. They have not been able to do any real self-reflection. So it's going to be difficult during these midterms as well as in the 2028 election, presidential election. But let's see what they've been up to.
In this second Trump administration, what of all of that we've seen play out over these 4 weeks most concerns you?
Well, Donald Trump and Republicans consistently promised that they were going to lower the high cost of living. And they've done the exact opposite. They've shown no interest in lowering costs in the United States of America, which are too high. Housing costs are too high. Grocery costs are too high. Child care costs are too high. Utility costs are too high. The cost of living is too high in the United States of America. This country is too expensive, but they've broken their promise. They have no interest in improving the quality of life of hardworking American taxpayers. Instead, what they're trying to do, while they distract the American people, is to jam the GOP tax scam down the throats of people all across this country, all in service of massive tax cuts for their billionaire donors and wealthy corporations. It's a toxic bait and switch that is underway, and we will continue to push back forcefully.
But Donald Trump's favorability rating is actually higher than it ever was the first time around. Let me ask you, a recent poll by Marquette looked at several of the things that he has done or says that he is going to do, and 63% favor federal government's recognition of only two sexes, 60% favor deporting immigrants who entered the United States illegally, 60% favor expanding oil and gas production, 59% favor declaring an emergency at the southern border. Is there anything you are seeing that Trump is doing that you are in favor of, that you think is the right thing?
Let me say, as it relates to all of those issues, we're just at the beginning. And the core promise that Donald Trump made is that he's going to lower costs for everyday Americans.
Okay, and so now I'm just going to pause it right there because I want you to take notice that he didn't even address the question. He didn't even answer the question. And so with regards to Trump's approval rating, I'm going to go back over there to that. Oops, let me get that. Go back to it because his approval numbers have continued to increase. Okay, so here we are. So here you see government's recognition of only two sexes. 63% of Americans approve of this. 63%. That is the majority of Americans approve of this. Now, again, this is anti-Democratic Party. Okay. Deporting immigrants here illegally. 60% of adults approve of this. Expanding oil and gas production. Again, 60% of Americans approve of this. Declare emergency at the southern border. 59%. So how is it that you continue to have the Democratic Party, Democratic leaders come on these national platforms and say that everything that Trump is doing is not in alignment with what he promised on the campaign trail and what the American public wants. That's not what the Democratic Party wants, but you did not win this election. And is that not the definition of a democracy? The one party who wins the Electoral College wins the seat, okay? And he also won the House and the Senate. And so what that means is the majority of Americans approved of his campaign promises, and he is actually fulfilling a whole lot of those campaign promises, specifically with immigration and the border. The border is more secure than it has been, I'm sure, in 4 years. I have not looked at the statistics, but we know we are not seeing the same amount of influx that we did under the Biden administration. And he has drastically reduced those numbers. Trump, he's been incredible with Tom Homan to do a lot of these deportations, and he has made huge strides. We know with regards to the numbers of getting people out of here, way more than Biden and Kamala did under their administration. And he hasn't even been in office for 30 days. Remember, his inauguration was January 20th. Today is the 16th, okay? This man hasn't even been in office 30 days and has already made more of an impact in this country than Biden and Kamala did in 4 years. But I'll continue.
Favor deporting immigrants who entered the United States illegally. 60% favor expanding oil and gas production. 59% favor declaring an emergency at the southern border. Is there anything you are seeing that Trump is doing that you are in favor of, that you think is the right thing?
Let me say, as it relates to all of those issues, we're just at the beginning. And the core promise that Donald Trump made is that he's going to lower costs for everyday Americans. In fact, we were told that grocery prices would go down on day one, on January 20th. Costs aren't lower. In fact, costs are increasing. The price of eggs is skyrocketing out of control. Inflation is on the way up. That was the...
And I can personally attest to that being false myself. So I have been in the grocery store. I'm the one who does do all the grocery shopping. I would say roughly 2 weeks ago, a carton of eggs, a dozen of eggs, was roughly $11, between $9 and $11. And I remember thinking to myself, listen, we don't need eggs that bad. We'll wait till they go back down. This week when I bought eggs, they were $5. They were $5 and some change. So him saying that eggs are continuing to skyrocket is false, because I know from personal experience those eggs prices have definitely gone down. Now, I'm not going to attribute that to Trump, because we know that the bird flu was contributing to the high prices in the price of eggs. However, they're not continuing to rise. That's a lie.
The core promise has been broken. With respect to immigration, listen, we have to secure the border. We have a broken immigration system, and we need to fix it in a comprehensive and bipartisan way. At the same period of time, as Democrats, we're going to protect dreamers, protect farm workers, and protect families who help our communities across the country thrive.
So I'm sure you saw Speaker of the House Johnson say the Democratic Party has no leader right now. You might expect it from him to say something like that. But your colleague, Don Beyer, big supporter of yours in the House, basically said the same thing. He said, we're still looking for that national spokesperson, and it could be that Hakeem, you, becomes that national voice. It hasn't happened yet.
Now, sidebar, again, I'm going to pause this. Hakeem Jeffries, they're saying, could be the spokesperson for the Democratic Party. I will let you know, all over the internet, they are calling this man Timu Obama, okay? They are calling him the knockoff, poor version of Barack Obama. So he is not leading the pack with regards to leadership in the Democratic Party. I will tell you that right now. And then they just put out a couple weeks ago of all of the others, all of the other men that they think will run in the primary. Kamala's running mate, you know, that's crazy because I don't even remember this man's name. What is that man's name that Kamala ran with? He was that forgettable, unfortunately. So he is most certainly not going to be a leader in the Democratic Party. We already know that Gavin Newsom is on everybody's shit list with regards to how he handled the fires in California, and California is a mess. And what he did in regards to blocking that reparations bill in California. So he has pissed a whole lot of people off, specifically the black community, which is a huge demographic with regards to the the Democratic voter base. So the Democrats gonna have to do a whole lot of cleaning house to position someone to be able to win in this primary as well as in this next political campaign. So I don't know, I don't know what they plan on doing, but it ain't gonna be Hakeem Jeffries. I can tell you that.
So are you effectively the leader of the Democratic Party nationally right now, the main spokesperson?
Frightening free radical.
It's the far-right extremism that is being unleashed on this country with record velocity. We've got to fight in the courts, push back in the Congress, and continue to push back in the community. And as House Democrats, we're doing just that, particularly as it relates to their efforts to not only jam these massive tax cuts down the throats of the American people for the wealthy, well-off, and well-connected, but they want to stick working-class Americans, middle-class Americans, and everyday Americans with the bill by effectively ending health care as we know it, hurting children, hurting women, hurting people with disabilities.
I'm so confused. What are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? You're going to continue to push back on this particular agenda. This is what Americans voted for. What are you pushing back on? Like, he just gave you the numbers with regards to Trump's approval rating. It's above average. They have the majority in regards to approvals. So what are you pushing back on? This is what Americans want. They want deportation. Okay? They want everything that's happening right now. They want Doge. They want to cut back government spending. Those aren't things that was on the Democratic platform. You guys wanted to keep open borders. Remember, you said the border wasn't an issue. It was not an issue. The borders aren't open. It's not an issue. That's what the Democratic Party said. And you talk about Trump protecting children. Trump was the only candidate discussing what was happening at the border with all of those missing migrant children. And not to mention, you were pro-abortion. Your party is pro-abortion. What are you talking about when it comes to protecting children? And so that's the thing. They're playing on our emotions. They are still under the guise that Americans are just stupid. That we're just stupid and we don't understand what's happening, and they can tell us whatever they want to tell us because they know best, and we're just going to acquiesce. We're just going to agree. We're just going to go to the polls like zombies and just vote Democrats because that's what we've been doing for years. Yes, we have been doing that for years. And yes, the tide has turned, as you can see with this last election. So what you've been doing is not working anymore. So you saying you're going to push back on everything that Trump is trying to do is only hurting you. It's only hurting your party. It's not making you stronger.
Hurting older Americans, hurting everyday Americans by slashing and burning Medicaid to the ground, effectively trying to jam up the Affordable Care Act. And they're going to target Social Security and Medicare. We're pushing back forcefully against those efforts every day, every week, every month, every year, and that will continue.
Government funding runs out in less than a month now. We've seen over the past 2 years, Republicans cannot or have not been able to pass government funding without Democratic support. Some of your supporters on the outside are saying you should use as leverage the possibility of a government shutdown to push back at some of what the Trump administration is doing right now. What will you need from Mike Johnson and from the Republicans to agree to go along with efforts to fund the government?
Republicans have consistently shut down the government in the past, and it would be no surprise if they do just that this time around. There's a Republican president, a Republican House, and a Republican Senate. They have a responsibility to make sure that government remains open and can function. As Democrats, with respect to any spending agreement, our view, our test is whether that spending agreement meets the needs of the American people in terms of their health, their safety, our national security, and certainly the economic well-being of everyday Americans. Rosa DeLauro is the top Democrat on the Appropriations Committee. She's in off and on conversations with her Republican colleague in the House, as well as our Republican and Democratic colleagues in the Senate. We'll see how that unfolds over the next few weeks, but we are going to make sure that any agreement that is ultimately signed off on has to be one that meets the needs of the American people, and it has to be implemented fully in compliance with the law.
And just quickly before you go, have you had any conversations with the White House? Have you talked to Chief of Staff Susie Wiles or the President about this?
I have not had any conversation with the White House, but I do expect that as we get closer and closer to March 14th, that those conversations will perhaps intensify. And at the end of the day, what we have been clear about is that this budget that is working its way through the House of Representatives is a non-starter. Every single Democrat opposed it a few days ago in the Budget Committee, and I believe that that will continue to be our position because it's out of control.
All right, Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, thank you very much.
The Democratic Party is thoroughly steeped in delusion. It's hard for me to step back and comprehend how they are making sense of this. It's just like, we're going to gaslight, we're going to BS our way through this and hope that somebody signs on and thinks that like what we're trying to do is favorable. What we're trying to do is going to benefit them. It is absolute nonsense. It's almost as if we have not been present for the last 4 years of this administration. Like, we don't have a clue what this country looked like while Biden was in office. It's like all of these people were in power and we were here with you in power. So how are you just going to decide you're going to keep things exactly the same? It's just going to be business as usual. And that's just going to be our gameplay. And we got voted out, but we're still going to just do the same thing and hope that somehow, you guys are just going to change your minds on what you really want and decide that, this LGBT agenda, all these immigrants, all this, males and women's sports and all this other craziness, this inflation, this massive spending, this funding war, all of this excess spending and craziness is just going to somehow magically turn into something that you guys all think is amazing. It's like that is the game plan, which is insane. Anyways, I also want to go over Miss Ayanna Pressley because I want you, specifically you, Black community, to look at how they are trying to play in your faces and play games with your emotions.
All right, good afternoon, and thank you everyone for braving the inclement weather as we gather to take an essential step forward in the long and ongoing fight for justice, accountability, and healing for Black America. Today, I'm deeply honored to reintroduce H.R. 40, historic legislation to establish a federal commission to examine the lasting legacy of slavery, to develop reparations proposals for descendants of enslaved Africans. It is an honor to inherit the privilege of carrying this bill forward. From Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. In my last correspondence with her, she said, keep working on our priorities and never give up. She was the previous House sponsor of H.R. 40 and a true giant in the movement for reparative justice. We are grateful for her leadership. We are grateful for her example and her voice. May she rest in peace and power. And we are grateful to be joined here today by her daughter, former Congresswoman Erica Lee Carter, who today, when I thanked her for braving the elements to journey here, said true justice is never convenient. I want to acknowledge some of our partners in good trouble in this fight. Senator Cory Booker, our co-lead in the Senate, Chairwoman Yvette Clarke of the Congressional Black Caucus, Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman, Congresswoman Latifah Simon, Congresswoman Summer Lee, and the more than 70 members of Congress who have signed on to co-sponsor the legislation that was first introduced. And I want to make this point because it is Black History Month. And while there are those that are working actively, either to erase our history or to whitewash it, that I'm here in this moment to pick up the mantle of this historic legislation that has been championed by John Conyers, Congress.
Okay, now remember, this is H.R. 40. This is monumental, historical legislation that has manifest absolutely nothing. Okay? Just keep that in mind. Like, we have been doing this year after year for 30 years and nothing has come of it. Okay? So now we are moved to tears. She is moved to tears and so honored to present this before you yet again.
Congressman John Conyers, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. That was introduced more than 30 years ago when Congressman John Conyers was a co-founder of the Congressional Black Caucus. We're at a critical inflection point in America, and the moment cannot be more urgent. With Black history under attack and white supremacy emboldened, there is no better time to introduce this bill than during Black History Month, a time when we reflect on our history, our struggle, and our collective power. And I'll say, it is also not only about Black history, but it is about Black futures.
Now, I'm going to stop right there because it's difficult for me to stomach the rest. She is bringing up this legislation during Black history because it's so emotional. She wants us Black voters to be moved, okay? To revitalize the faith in the Democratic Party and understand that they're here for us. They care for us. They want reparations for us, and to sow this seed and to let you know that we are still here for you. Okay? We are going to bring about this powerful, impactful, historical legislation for reparations. Now, let's go ahead and look and see exactly what this reparations bill is. And this is directly from congress.gov, okay? For HR 40, commissioned to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans Act. Now, how many times have we done a study on reparations? I'll wait. Now, as she stated in the video, this is legislation that has been proposed for 30 years. 30 years. They've been studying the idea of a proposal for reparations. And because it's Black History Month, it would be an honor to just go ahead and propose this baseless, unnecessary theater of emotion and legislation, because somehow that's supposed to appeal to you Black people. Now, remember, Miss Kamala couldn't run on nothing, right? She couldn't offer nothing, right? And she told us that she wasn't gonna offer y'all nothing. And once Obama went to Philly and saw that the numbers amongst Black men were dropping, then she came out with that so-called proposal for specifically Black men. But of course, once you read the fine print, you realize it's not just for Black men. It is for all men and all Americans. And, you know, she threw that approval or legalization of weed just to, you know, dig a little deeper. So once we realized that was BS, they lost the election. So now they are bringing about a new study for reparations, which we already know is going nowhere because it has gone nowhere for 30 years. Okay? It's not actual cash payments. It's not anything but theater and playing on your emotions. And they're hoping that a lot of you don't read, don't research, don't get on the internet and find out exactly what this HR 40 is about, and will truly believe that the Democrats are talking about reparations. They talking about, oh girl, they talking about reparations. No, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not. They playing you, okay? And we already know the Republicans own the House. The Republicans own the Senate. Ain't nobody passing no reparations. They're not even gonna pass a study on reparations. And so I would ask Miss Ayanna Pressley, well, why you didn't bring this up during the Biden administration? Why you didn't push for real reparations, not just a study, because we've studied it for 30 years, so we know what it entails. Okay, why you didn't ask to go ahead and push some real, not even ask, why you didn't just push some real legislation that would actually bring about real cash payments during the Biden administration when you had the majority of Congress? Why now? Why now? I'm going to tell you why now. Because you're playing on our emotions and you playing games and you ain't got nothing. You don't have nothing else to pull from, okay? And so you hoping you can get, those black constituents, those black voters back in line, black on the Democratic plantation, so that y'all can just get our attention back and we can fuel and feed, these primaries. No, baby. That ain't gonna work, because the entire reason why black people didn't come out in 2024 is because they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And until the Democratic Party gets it together and understands the needs of this community specifically and start bringing about some real progress and some real change and something that we can actually see in our communities, we good. It's no reason. And then earlier you got Hakeem Jeffries talking about leadership in the Democratic Party. Ain't no leadership in the Democratic Party, because y'all not talking about nothing. Y'all not talking about nothing. And so I honestly do not understand how these people plan on winning any election for I would say 8+ years, because they haven't changed anything. It's like they're completely in denial. They're in denial. Like, when we watch The View and you listen to those ladies on The View, like, they genuinely believe that the entire country is misogynist and racist, and that's how Kamala didn't win. It had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that Kamala was extremely unqualified. It had nothing to do with the fact that she couldn't answer a single question about any policy or procedure or take a stance on virtually any subject, period. That had nothing to do with nothing. It's because we're all misogynistic and racist. Here I am, a black woman, just finding out I'm misogynistic and racist. Imagine that. So yes, I would love, like I said, to get you guys' opinions on Mr. Hakeem Jeffries and Ayanna Pressley trying to play on our emotions during Black History Month and pretend they bringing up some new reparations bill that ain't really about much of nothing. And what you think is going to be the future for the Democratic Party, because the United States is changing. Right now, the Democratic Party that has been in reign for so long is not popping on nothing. They not hitting on nothing. And I don't know what they could possibly do. So I want to continue this conversation going in the comments. So please do tell me your opinion on both subjects. And if you have not already, please do subscribe. I appreciate all the support, all the love. And again, my name is Andrea Banu. And thank you for watching the Community Ledger. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and watch the next video by clicking right here.